Hi everyone and welcome to Artisarium. I am Robin and in this episode I'm gonna show you how to make a simple mold cast of your hands using alginate and plaster and some magic.
No!
Okay, so these are the things you will need. A couple of buckets. I use these square ones because they're easier to pour from. And I also use a larger one to have water in, since we don't have direct access to water here in the workshop. Alginate to cast your hands in. About 500 grams per hand is needed. And of course, plaster. I bought this synthetic plaster since it's supposed to not soak water once it's hardened. And some containers to make the mold in. I made these from some spare twin wall plastic to fit my hands without leaving too much room around them, so I don't waste any alginate. Something to pour the water with, preferably with measurement markings. And last but not least, a mixer. You will only have about a minute to mix the alginate before it starts curing, so you're gonna need to be somewhat fast when mixing. Okay, let's start! When you're pouring the alginate into a mold, you want it to be more liquid than thick, so it gets into all the small areas like pores and holes. And that usually means a ratio of 1 part alginate to 3 to 4 parts water. You fill up the water first, then add the alginate into the water while mixing. That way you don't get too much lumps in the mix. And as I said before, you only have about a minute before the alginate starts to cure, so remember to mix fast and have everything ready for the next step. Good, the alginate is mixed, and it's time to pour it into the mold container. For this step, it's much easier to have some help, so here's Elinor helping me out while I'll just stand still for a couple of minutes. And if you're gonna do both of your hands like we did, I suggest you still make one at a time. And the first thing you should do is to cover your hand with some alginate to minimize air bubbles building up around your hand. And then you just pour in the alginate. Ugh. Make sure your hand doesn't touch the container sides. You want at least a couple of millimeters of clearance between your hand and the wall. Otherwise the alginate might tear when you remove your hand from the cast. You'll notice when the alginate starts to cure, and when it does, it's very important to not move at all so you don't mess up the casting. Once the alginate is cured and you can't move your hand at all, I suggest you wait 1 more minute just to make sure all of it is really cured. Then comes the fun part, trying to remove your hand. Be careful though, so you don't rip the alginate. Make small and slow movements, bending and twisting your hand and fingers so that air gets in between your hand and the alginate. Take your time, don't stress it. I went on for about 3 minutes on this one before I got my hand out. Wow! Here you got it. I don't know if you can see it. And then we did another one. It's really good. Next step is filling in the molds with plaster. This is pretty simple and straightforward. Just check the mixing ratio for your specific plaster. On this plaster it was 3 parts plaster to 1 part water. And one trick I want to mention is when mixing the plaster and water, just as with the alginate, you fill up the water first, but then you want to pour in the plaster slowly and evenly into the water and let it soak all the way through the plaster before you mix it. That way you avoid lump building. After mixing the plaster, preferably with a stick, but you can also use your hands, You just pour in the plaster into the alginate mold. You should start by filling up only halfway, then stop to make sure to get air bubbles out by tilting the mold around and hitting it on the sides. Then you fill up the rest and hit the sides again to get the last of the air bubbles out. And of course, the same procedure for the other hand. Then you just wait for the plaster to dry. This usually takes about 2 to 3 hours in normal room temperature. Okay, so it's been about 2.5 hours and the molds have cured. It's time to remove the alginate and see how the hands turned out. Be careful to not cut the plaster when you remove the alginate. It's very easy to accidentally make a mark with the knife. One more. Cool! There you have it! Super simple, super fast. We're gonna use these hands for making some prosthetics for an upcoming costume project that I'm sure you don't want to miss out on. But your reason to do something like this might be something else, so let us know in the comments what you're up to. But that's it for now. We hope you found this video helpful and fun to watch. Go check out our other videos and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on upcoming content. And don't forget to give a thumbs up if you think we deserve it. We're Artisarium, thanks for watching and see you bye bye!